Rolling.
Welcome, Andrew Wilson, winner of our composition contest for 2020/2021. With his piece Viola and Cesario will be performed in a week by the young violists who are vying for the title of winner. We're very delighted to welcome Andrew from his town in Devon near the Cornish border. And Andrew is going to tell us a little bit about what he's been doing the last number of years. And over to you, Andrew.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me along. I was going to say this evening, but I don't. Whatever time it is for you, I'm quite happy. I was really very delighted to hear the news that you'd selected my piece for the competition. It's really very, very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what the competitors do with it. I think that's an important part of it. My part is done now. Now it's over to the competitors to see what they do. I'm not a particularly prescriptive sort of composer who insists on being it done one way or another. I know that they will all bring something to it that I probably haven't even thought of. So that's where we are there. As you said in your kind introduction, I live in Devon, right in the southwest corner of the United Kingdom, the bit that sticks out at the bottom when you see the map there. So not very far from the sea, so that's always very exciting. Although I haven't seen much of it lately because we've been because of the COVID restrictions. We're currently in a lockdown at the moment, and that's supposed to last for another. Well, I'm not quite sure when we're allowed out again, but at the moment I can only go out for daily exercise and essential purposes. Fortunately, it's an extremely beautiful part of the country, so it's not really much of a hardship, only being able to go for a bicycle ride on the moor. To give you some idea of the sort of place, I don't know whether you know the Conan Doyle Hound of the Baskervilles, the famous, yes. Well, good. Well, that's all set on Dartmoor, and the town of Tavistock, where I live, is right on the edge of Dartmoor, so I can go cycling up there and imagine being chased by some foul beast.
So do people really get lost out there, and are there really like swampy places that you like?
Yes, they do. They do. Yes, and I don't know whether you know, but there's an extremely grim prison that was built right on the top of it, Princetown, and they put it there because the chances of escaping from it, you're bound to get lost first. Actually, it's not used. So it's not used so much now, but it certainly in the past it was a byword for the grimmest prison in this country. Yes. Oh, our Alcatraz, that.
Yes, I was going to say your Alcatraz.
Yes. We're all thinking of Alcatraz. Yes.
Yeah. But it's in fact there's a funny story about this bit. I don't know, it's a bit off the point, but I used to teach. I used to be director of music at Kelly College, which is a big school on the edge of Tavistock, and some boys cycled up to Princetown Prison once and stole the sign. They unscrewed the sign from the prison. They brought it back and put it back on the school wall instead, so it made the school look as if it was the prison. They got into terrible trouble and had to take it back to the prison, and they were taken in to see the governor, who who pretended to be very strict and told them all his powers and how he could keep them there indefinitely for their thing. But he said, but on the other hand, I expect you're rather thirsty. He gave them all a glass of beer and sent them back and said, never come here again. So there we are. Not much related to the story, but well, there we are, a jolly one. You better get me back on track.
Yes, exactly. No, we would love to hear about Viola and Cesario and when you started it and what how it is that you came to write a piece for the viola.
Yeah, well, obviously, the pun is there. When I first saw your the notice that you were of the competition, that you were asking for something, I was thinking, well, what does the viola mean to you? And I thought, well, apart from the fact that it's a very beautiful musical instrument, it's also a very engaging Shakespearean character. I wonder if there's any sort of connection I can bring out here. And the idea, I thought, yes, there is something you can do. You've got someone pretending to be someone else. You can have a number of different themes to represent both their two characters and the anxiety that she is feeling in her strange predicament there. So I said, yes, I think that I can do something with this. So that's where it came from. Yeah.
I have to say, Andrew, I've never made that connection myself. I've played viola for a long time, and I never connected the idea of this sort of pretending to be someone else in the guise. But I love that connection. It's very elegant.
Yeah, and the oddity, the more I thought about it, the more interesting it is. You notice that nearly everybody, so many of the other characters are also anagrams of viola with a few letters. So Malvolio, viola's in there, and Olivia, it's in there as well. So I thought, there must be something, some connection. Fate is drawing me there. Even though Shakespeare, presumably, the nearest he would get to it would be a viol. But I don't know whether it had a musical meaning for him as well. That was just a sort of something that twigged with me.
Yeah, that particular play is full of music.
Oh, absolutely, right? Yes. Festi and yes.
Yeah, I did.
Kiss Me Sweet and 20.
Yes, and if music be the food of love, play on.
Yes, right at the beginning
of the play.
Yes, it is a musician. Play. You're quite right. Yes.
I did the music once for a production at the university here, so I really got into that aspect.
Yes, and countless composers have set the songs.
Yes,
countless.
I did it too. I did the Away Death.
Yes. And I think of Stanford's Sweet and 20. There's a particularly lovely one, but he's not the only one by any means. Yes, no, yes, and So well, it's something that a musician is bound to think of. I think in terms of Shakespeare's plays. Yeah.
I'm curious to know, and I think maybe our the people listening to this Pandemonium series might be interested to know, how do you pronounce the name of our instrument, and how do you pronounce the name of this character?
Well, yes, it's an interesting point. You've probably heard me say and I think most people in this country call the instrument, certainly call it the viola. Is that what's the consensus in Northern California? Yes, the viola.
That's definitely the consensus. Yes.
Yes. Good. You do hear some people say viola, as you do with the character, and that possibly is right. Not being a linguist, I wouldn't know, but because I've been working on this, I've been pronouncing them the same because it's because they've come to be sort of united in this little project. So, so
That's
rightly,
good. That helps me as I'm working on the piece, as I'm looking at it. It helps me to have in my mind what you would call it, Viola and Cesario.
Yeah, and Cesario. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Good.
So, what else have you been working on lately during quarantine, for example, or during lockdown?
The list is embarrassingly large. I've had so much time in my composing shed that I have written a huge amount in the last year. But the most recent, I'll just pick up on some of the more interesting ones that I've been working on a song cycle with a collaboration with a poet who lives in Somerset, which is the next county to the east in here. So not very far away, although we can't meet at all, except on meetings like this, Zoom meetings. We've managed to do a whole piece based on the countryside and her life in Somerset. This is a poet called Stella Davis. I've worked with her in the past. When I had, fun enough, it was setting her music for a competition years ago. But now we've actually been working on something together to make and that's been very rewarding. What is the difficulty now is managing to get a performance. I've got lots of sopranos says, yes, I'd love to do it, but there are no concerts, and so unless there's someone very good at technically and do one of these remote things, I think we're going to have to wait for a chance to hear that. I've been working on a lot of things for small ensembles, solos, and duos for that very reason. I mean, it's lovely to be able to compose so much, but when there's no prospect of hearing it for so long, it's a little bit dispiriting. So I've been trying to write things that people can actually do at home and work on. So I've done a series of pieces for flute and oboe, flute and clarinet, and clarinet for a friend of mine who lives in Alabama. Suddenly, in this in this emergency, distances don't seem to. It doesn't matter whether you live 3 miles away or 3,000 miles away at the moment, doesn't it? So Denise Gainey, who's the professor of clarinet in Alabama at Birmingham, I wrote a little piece for her about her cat called Shiva. So I'm looking forward to hearing that coming up. And a piece for 2 violins, a serenata for another for a friend of mine in Argentina. So it's all over the world. Yes, I've also written a big cantata about something that happened, or is alleged to have happened in Cornwall in medieval times, and that's for that'll be the first thing I do with my choir when we're allowed to meet up again. We'll do the Legend of Jan Tregeagle, which will be it'll be lovely to get to work with lots of people again. That's what I'm missing. I'm sure you are as well. Yes.
In ordinary times, as they were, if we get back, you are a director of choir in your local area.
Yes. I've done a good many over the years, but at the moment, the main one I work with, they're called the Callington Singers, a very fine choir, and they're actually over the border in Cornwall. There was a rather funny thing, actually, because at first, during the first part of the COVID emergency, the restrictions were much less severe in Cornwall than they were in Devon. one of the things was the pubs were allowed to be open in Cornwall, but not in Devon. You can probably guess what happened. Yes, the police had to put a roadblock on the bridge that crosses the river in between Devon and Cornwall to turn thirsty Devon people back and stop them going there, because that's how near we are. But we haven't been able to meet properly since last March now, and there was a point where they could meet, but their conductor wasn't allowed to go to cross the bridge and see them. So actually, quite a lot of the choir come from this side of the border as well. So it wasn't only me. But yeah, we're very much looking forward to that coming back. The only things I'm doing other than composing at the moment is I'm the director of studies of an institution called the National College of Music of London. Even though I haven't been to London now for a year, we're having to do all our work like this. The main thing that the college does is promote examinations, external examinations for people. So we've got very quickly into the mood of doing online exams, and that's been remarkably successful, and from my point of view great, because I'm actually seeing youngsters and older people playing and working them. Otherwise we would almost have come to a complete standstill. So I've still got my hand in there.
Good. I'm sure that everybody will be eager to know what your path to composing was and what your original instrument was when you started out as a kid.
Like so many people, I started with the good old recorder when I was a little boy, but my first study for most of my education was the clarinet, funny enough, and then of course the piano and the organ. I played the organ professionally for a long while. You're going to say, can you play the viola? And the answer is, well, not really, except that as I was a director of music in a school for 30 odd years, it is absolutely essential to be able to play every instrument to some extent. I like to think that I can play as a minimum Happy Birthday and God Save the Queen on that's God Bless America to You on every instrument that there is. Some it sounds better than others, I might say. The trombone, that gives me a lot of trouble. I get Happy Birthday sounds a little bit awkward on the trombone, but yeah. So I mean, I was always mending violins, violas, cellos, and I mean, you have to. If you're writing arrangements for school children, particularly, if you write something that can't be done on that instrument, they soon let you know, and it makes you aware of what instruments can and can't do, or easily, and what's difficult.
I like speaking of the way your piece works for viola. I really enjoy how it lies in the hand, particularly this opening diminished sound, which sort of is a motive that goes through the whole piece. And as I've listened to some of your music, I've heard it goes through a lot of your music, of your other music that I've listened to. So the feeling of how the instrument feels in your hand feels natural to a player. Kudos to you for that.
Well, even though I'm not a viola player, I was all the way through going, yeah, they can do. I think they can do that. Yes, they can reach that. Yes.
Patty, were you going to play a little bit?
The trouble is, I'm left-handed, so yes.
No, I'm sorry. I can't do it in public now.
Oh.
We are
Well.
really looking forward to hearing our competitors play this piece. Every year we've done this competition. It just is astonishing to me how beautifully these young violists come up with interpretations of these little pieces that are just pulled out of nowhere, really, for them. And
Wow.
I'm really, your piece in particular has a feeling of lightness and curiosity and silliness. There's something in that I'm looking forward to hearing from our teenagers.
Same here. I can't wait to hear what they come up with. This. Perhaps you'd like to see the particular part. We've got a link, haven't we, Katie,
Yeah.
to Joanna Lumley doing the part at the end of Act 2 that I really had in mind, where she's really realizing that things are starting to get a bit complicated, and if they need to have any particular part in their minds when they're thinking of how they might do it, this is probably it.
I left no ring with her. What means this lady?
Can you hear that okay?
Fortune forbid my outside hath not charmed her. She made good view of me, indeed so much that sure we thought her eyes had lost their tongue, for she did speak in starts, distractedly. She loves me, sure. The cunning of her passion invites me in this churlish messenger. None of my lord's ring? Why, he sent her none. I am the man. If it be so, I suppose, poor lady, she were better love a dream. Disguise, I see thou art a wickedness wherein the pregnant enemy does much. How easy is it for the proper false in women's waxen hearts to set their forms? Alas, our frailty is the cause, not we. For such as we are made of, such we be. Oh, this fudge! My master loves her dearly, and I, poor monster, fond as much on him, and she, mistaken, seems to dote on me. What will become of this? As I am man, my state is desperate for my master's love. As I am woman, now alas the day, what thriftless sighs shall poor Olivia breathe? Oh, time, thou must untangle this, not I. 'Tis too hard a knot for me to untie.
Our revels now are ended, and these are actors, as I...
That is
Is
so
he gone?
As he left. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah, really, really great. She's explaining how, for those who maybe aren't familiar with the play, she's dressed up. She's come to a strange country. She's dressed up as a young gentleman, and she's fallen in love with the local count, and his the one that he loves has fallen in love with her dressed up as a man. So it's quite a tangle.
Yes, and even more so when you remember that in Shakespeare's day, the female parts were played by boys. So she was a boy pretending to be a girl, pretending to be a boy. So it adds even another dimension to it, a complete mess, really. But yeah, very amusing.
I feel like just looking at the score that you provided for us, and listening to it myself, I feel like you've captured that sense of awkward, sort of, I want to do this, I want to do that, but I can't step out of my character. But what is my character? There's a hodgepodge there that I think our young players will really enjoy tearing into.
it's very modern, isn't it? The message, actually,
Yes.
it might be a very old play, but the questions that are being posed here are remarkably up to date and pertinent. I was very aware of that, which is lovely.
Sort of, who am I, and who am I for, and what's my role in this particular confused setup.
And
which,
what control do I have over it?
Yes, and what do I want out of it? It is a very it's a timeless story that teenagers in particular are grappling with. So
let's hope so.
So you were going to tell us before we started about your first composition ever. So please tell us.
Yes, my first composition. I started writing it when I was when I was 7. It was not long after I became a choir boy, and I became very, very interested. And that's certainly the best way to learn to read music, to be a choir boy, because any young chap, when you're given those dots and you're given the words, and you've got to be pretty dull not to work out what the correlation between what you're being told to do and what you can see on the pages. And I was desperate to try it out myself. There was a series of books that were very popular in this country called the Ladybird books. They were all very they were all on subjects of were improving and important in history and so on. And the ones I really, really loved were the lives of the great composers. And I thought they gave a rather idealistic idea of what the life of a composer was, but they certainly fired me. I thought, yes, I want to be like these chaps in the wigs and the breeches, and I want to write music like this. So that's what I even earlier I tried to do it. I thought you had to do it with a quill, so I made one, because all the pictures in the book they always wrote music with a quill. They never used a pencil. So I made a lot of mess on blot. I'm afraid that this piece doesn't survive, and it's probably just as well from everyone's point of view. But I do have some of my early efforts, usually with pompous French titles that I thought you weren't allowed to write things with English titles. They had to be French, but or Italian. The trouble is I didn't know very much French or Italian. they tend to be wrong. But then Schubert managed to get it wrong too, didn't he? And in his Moments Musicaux, he obviously didn't study his French grammar very carefully either. So I'm not too worried about that. Yeah.
Have you got other pieces for the viola, or other pieces that feature?
Yes, funnily enough, yes, I have. I've got a concerto for viola and strings that was about 10 years ago, and a very good friend of mine, Tim Bolton, played the solo. And it went very well, but I need to find some viola players and string orchestra to do it again. For that, so what else have I done? Oh, there's a sonata. I've written a sonata for the viola. That was a long time ago, and of course it's I like to give it good parts when I'm writing orchestral things. So, I felt very pleased. I wrote a piece for an orchestra in Norwich, and the viola player said, "What a really nice viola part! Thank you very much." And I thought, well, yeah, I must make a point of that then. So I try to be kind to you, because a lot of people aren't. I'm afraid, are they, to violas? You do a lot of chug 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 for a lot of the time. But yeah, so I like the viola very much. I think it's a marvelously characterful instrument, and quite a challenge too, because of the where it lies, its place in the tonal spectrum. So yes, I like it very much, and it's fun, always fun to write for.
Are you at all inspired by the original or period instrument movement? And we were just talking recently to a viola d'amorist, and just wondered if any of those, like, writing new music for those old instruments had ever sparked your interest.
You broke up a little bit there, but you're asking me about whether the organ is
No,
influenced.
whether the period instrument movement,
Period instrument,
and whether any of those instruments had sparked your interest to write for, such as the viola d'amore or just the Baroque viola or violin.
No, it's a very good idea. That the nearest I've come to that is writing for a group called the Norwich Baroque. Norwich is a city in the on the east side of England, and they have a very good Baroque orchestra. But they also like to program music written by modern composers, but using the Baroque instruments and period things. So I've done 3 things for them, and that was very interesting. You suddenly realise that you can't go up and write up off the fingerboard, and you've got to because they've dropped their instruments and so on. And thinking about the role of the continuo, it's quite a because it perhaps doesn't come naturally to think of in those terms, but of putting a keyboard filling in there. But yeah, so that's the nearest come. I've never written for the viola d'amore, but a commission would be very welcome. Yes. From some generous benefactor and lover of the viola d'amore, yes, just get in touch. I'll
We'll put the word out. Put the word out for you.
Yeah.
So besides the range of the instruments and then the adding of a continuo, I'm wondering what other parts of the sound of people who play period instruments informed the way that you approached that, as opposed to what you did for your choir, for example, or the viola concerto.
Yes, I'd certainly be aware of the ranges, and not writing quite so outlandishly virtuosic parts in terms of a position changing and that type of thing. But I think all in all, probably my own voice comes out just the same. Really, it's just I do think very carefully about the instrumentation, whether I'm writing for a brass quintet or for a string quartet or whatever it is. It's I do feel it's part of the composer's job to know what he's doing in terms of instruments. And if you write things that they can't play and don't work, well, that's really your failing. It's not their job to overcome what mistakes you've made like that. So I think it's part of my business, and if I get it wrong, I take responsibility. Yeah.
What is your work process like? And do you work from the keyboard or an instrument?
Well, yes. Once again, I go back to those Ladybird books, and they never work. They always worked at a desk, and sometimes standing up. But I do work at a desk. I work in my garden shed. It's a very nice. It's a very nice garden shed. I don't share it with the lawnmower and brooms and things, but it is insulated because it's not very warm a lot of the year. So it's a place where I can retreat to and be completely on my own. Nobody can disturb me, and I don't disturb them. But I work with pencil and paper, and then put it onto the computer when I'm ready to do that. I know the youngsters think I must be a complete balmy to do it in that way, and they work straight into the computer. But I find actually writing with pencil on paper has a lot of advantages. In terms of quality control, you find those mistakes because in effect I write the whole piece out twice, and I have second thoughts, and it works. And I find, that working with a pen and pencil and a ruler, you can feel your way in a way that is much nicer. Working in front of a television screen isn't very romantic, is it? Let's face it. And so, but I just don't use the quill anymore. But I suppose it does go back to all that, all that type of thing. The other place I do my composing that might be a bit of a surprise is while riding my bicycle. I got this. It's not original. I read a biography of Sir Edward Elgar, and it said how he did a lot of his composing in his head whilst on his bicycle. And I thought, well, that's a very interesting idea, because I do a lot of bicycling, and especially in this lockdown, and it's absolutely right. It's a great place for things sort of come out of the air as you fly by, and you say, no, I mustn't forget that. So you work it all out properly, so that when I get back into the shed, I said, yeah, I know, it just comes out. And if I'm get in a block and can't see the way forward, the rhythm of the pedaling, it seems to very often seems to unravel any compositional problems that are there, and you can't see you can't see the way forward when you're standing at the paper, but when you're in a different state, then it seems to sort it out. So yes, I thank Sir Edward for helping me there. He came up with a really good idea. He must have been very, very fit. The accounts of the bicycle rides that he would do in a day on an old-fashioned bicycle with no gears are absolutely astonishing. He must have had legs of iron to ride from Worcester to Hereford, for example, which is right across the Malvern Hills. He must it was all right going down them, I suppose, but going up them he must have had a dignity. So I've got lots of admiration for Elgar for helping me in that way, and for his extreme fitness.
Now we have the other link that you sent. Did you want to say something about that and take a look at it?
Yes, the other link. This is. I was thinking that you might like to hear some more of my string writing, and this is a piece called Tros and Tres, which is for string orchestra, and as I promised, the violas get quite a lot of the attention here.
Let me get it back to the beginning here.
wonderful. I can just picture you cycling all of
Yeah.
the rolling hills of Maine.
Yeah, that's
Kim,
well,
and I'm going to talk to you today
yes.
about
Oh,
the boomstick trio, and I'm going to take my class.
there.
Oh,
That was lovely, Andrew. Oh, what a pleasant romp. Yes.
I ought to say that truss and tress is the Cornish word for folk dancing, and it literally means the sound of the feet. And that little melody that keeps cropping up is an actual Cornish broom dance. They put the whole dance is done with a broom, and they do all sorts of clever things with it. So that's another one of my Cornish elements. It was originally written for a Cornish string orchestra, but that was done being performed there by a different London group on the recording. Yeah, no.
Well, that was lovely. It made me think of Britain, and made me think of a little bit of Elgar, but Stravinsky also. There's some Stravinsky in the lightness, the Dumbarton Dumbarton Oaks piece of Stravinsky.
Oh, Dumbarton Oaks. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, indeed,
Has
yes.
that feeling to it.
and
It's
Holst.
really lovely, and the bicycling image is just wonderful.
I'd never thought of it, but yeah, they could well have been behind it. But I hope that there's a sort of feeling of sweep in it anyway, in more senses than one.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was just delightful conversation with you. And I know we're all looking forward very, very much to what the finalists in the Young Violists Competition do with your piece on the 7th of March. It will be taking place, I guess it's a little bit late for you, but
oh, I shall be. I'm a big boy now. They'll let me stay up. I wouldn't miss it for the world. You can be sure I shall be. I can't wait to hear what they come up with.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And we'll have recordings in case it gets too late.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, that will be good. Yes. In case I'm too bleary-eyed, but no, I'm sure I will be able to do for that. Yes, I must say it's been an absolute pleasure for me too to speak to you all tonight, and thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you, and lovely to hear your music.
And
Thank you very
congratulations,
much.
and thank you for writing the piece.
Thank you.
Yes.
See you again soon.
Okay.
See you in March.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
7th of March. Bye-bye.